Hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and I'm back with another review. And today we are taking a look at, from the Transformers Generations War for Cybertron Earthrise line. Boy, that's a mouthful. This is Voyager class Megatron. I got this figure off of Amazon.com, but I've heard that it is showing up in various targets around the country, so your mileage may vary, as I don't think Amazon has any in stock right now. This figure is a heavy retool of the Voyager class Megatron from the War for Cybertron Siege line. We're going to take a look at that in a little bit and do a comparison. So yeah, this version of Megatron is meant to be more of a G1 style, at least more of an Earth G1 style, whereas the Siege one was a Cybertronian intergalactic G1 style. So, that's enough of this preamble. Let's bring in Siege Megatron and do a comparison. Okay, so I'm using the 35th anniversary cel-shaded Megatron, as that was basically the easiest one I had handy, and I felt like busting it out. While it does look nice, I do have to say, it doesn't really resemble the cartoon. I believe Earthrise Megatron, the designs and what have you, better resemble the cartoon. So, starting off, doing the comparisons, you'll notice right away the heads are actually I'm not going to say very different, but are different. Different facial expressions, different ways the faces sit in the helmet. Even the helmet is a bit of a different design. Moving down, the chest and torso have a different layout, whereas the Earthrise Megatron more closely resembles the original G1 cartoon. The waist piece is even different, as because there's a difference in transformation. Well, I shouldn't say difference in transformation. The steps are basically similar, but how things peg together are different. So that piece is a little different. Here on the Siege Megatron, you have a lot more detailing, where on Earthrise you don't. Taking a look at the arms are actually, I think, one of the few things that are actually the same. The only thing that's sort of different is they kind of remolded that upper shoulder piece where the fake trigger section is. On Siege Megatron, you do have this little flap here that flips up to cover up that piece, whereas on Earthrise Megatron, that's been removed and filled in, but you still have a port there. But other than that, the shoulders are the same. Coming around and taking a look at the back, the treads are actually different. They transform the same way, but in terms of how they peg it in, completely different. Earthrise has all new tooling. Spoilers for the transformation, it combines with the legs to form a single treaded tank, whereas Siege Megatron, as we all know, was an Earthrise tank. Also, the flap that comes up in the front is different, but again, it pegs in the same way. Continuing our look, the upper part of the leg here, the calf section, I guess you could say, is exactly the same. If it wasn't broke, don't fix it. But moving down, the thighs, the lower part of the legs, are brand new pieces. Again, that has to do with how the treads transform and peg together. The combat ports are even in different areas and stuff like that. And the feet are the same, although they did fix a possible issue that some people might have had, and that issue was the ankles would lock into place, and there was a concern that you were actually breaking the figure as you pop them out. In fact, I had to use a spudger to actually pop the ankle on this Siege Megatron back into place. Now the ankles are completely free moving. Personally, I would have preferred to have them locked, just because of how they are positioned in vehicle mode. So, as you can see, there's a lot different here, but it all comes together for a very closely similar design. So let's pause and take a look at the accessories. So these are the accessories I have. This is with Earthrise Megatron, and these are Siege Megatrons. And believe it or not, you would figure the one thing that they could keep the same would be the fusion cannon. But in actuality, they did do a new fusion cannon. There's different detailing for the most part on the sides. Everything is redone. I think the Earthrise one might be a little bit longer, but there's different detailing on the barrel. Bottom is basically the same, you know, and stuff like that. So that was interesting that they went ahead and did that. But now the big difference is, at least in my opinion, is the swords. This is the version that comes with the Earthrise Megatron, and as you can tell, it's all one. It's basically one solid blade. It's more like a spear than a sword. Whereas on the Siege version of Megatron, this, you know, you had like a couple different options here. You could flip it out, have a claw, different ways to attach it and peg it in, and you could make a super cannon or something like that. You really can't do that with this one. Now, I'm going to say that in terms of design, this looks more like the sword that the original G1 Megatron toy came with. But it's just, first of all, if you notice, there's only this peg right here, and it's on a hinge, so you can only peg it into Megatron's arm. And that's like, yeah. But the other thing is, you have this removable piece, which is like, you know, just a simple plate. Now, I've seen pictures of the Generation Select's G2 Megatron that uses this mold, and it's using it as a shield. But actually, this actually plays a somewhat important part in vehicle mode. We'll get into that with the transformation. Suffice it to say, is with both versions of this mold, if you lose the swords, you basically are going to have an incomplete vehicle mode. More so if you lose the sword and that plate with Megatron, with Earthrise Megatron. So, that basically said, those are the accessories. Let's get into the transformation. Okay, so let's party. As I mentioned at the beginning, the transformation is basically the same as Siege Megatron. It's just how the parts come together at the end, which are different. So to start off, that is something I should mention. Both molds, they have a tendency to want to dip backwards, and I find having to do like the, you know, crotch forward, thrusting out type of positioning to get Megatron to stand. That is something that is a little bit annoying. But go ahead and rotate the fusion cannon around and then flip the fists in, just like so. You don't have those coverings again, as I mentioned, so you don't have to worry about flipping those up. Next, what you want to do is come in along the back here and detach this entire back section, flipping it forward, giving yourself enough clearance to come in and flip the arms around. And what you will do is peg the other shaft on the fusion cannon into the forearm and bring it together, just like so. Next, what you want to do is come in and open up the tracks just like so. Now, I didn't mean to mention that they did fix on Megatron here the problems with his head panel from that first release of the Siege mold. So basically, if you get any of the other releases of the Siege mold, including Earthrise here, his head doesn't really want to droop in. And in fact, you kind of have to like force it down now to get it to collapse in. Speaking of which, that's what we're doing right now. There's a small plastic tab here that's going to go into slots on the inside of the arm. At the same time, you're going to bring that front cowling forward and tab it all into place. And it's not that difficult, but it's just lining everything up. And I do have to admit that over time, I am concerned that, there we go, that those tabs might break. So as you can see, Megatron's head is recessed, but just not as recessed as you would think it should be for being a tank. Rotate his hips around, just like so. Bring them out to the side. At this point, you might as well just make your life easy and flip up the feet. Go ahead and flip up these inside panels and bring one of the legs down. I'm doing this one. Now, this is where we're going to pause, and I'm going to bring in that black paneling piece from the sword, because we're going to do the wiggle jiggle with the leg here as it folds up as it normally would. And then you're going to bring that panel back down and snap the leg into place, forming a whole tread. Now let's see if I can, this will show up properly. Right there on my finger, you'll see some grooves. What you want to do is, since we're facing the underside of the tank, with the peg facing towards you, go ahead and peg the two tabs on that plate into the back of Megatron, and now bend the other leg forward. They show you to do this at the very end of the transformation, and to be honest with you, it's a little bit easier to do it now, just so you have the space and the clearance. And again, doing it at the end of the transformation, whereas you would have to come in and just try to wedge it in, I kind of feel there's a chance you could break something. Straighten the feet out and fold them down. They're not going to go down that far. And you're about done with the tank mode. The final step is you want to come in, fold this handle down all the way, slide it underneath, and then peg it into place. These front sections will go over those faux triggers, and the barrel will peg into the front of the fusion cannon. Give it a little bit of the transformer squeeze. Make sure everything is lined up properly. And there you have Megatron in its tank mode. As I mentioned, this front piece is all new. The treads are all new. And that back piece joins the two rear sections. So this looks like a proper Earth-style tank. The transformation actually went a little bit easier than what I've been having, I guess because I've done it a couple times. But sometimes getting those front and rear treads to peg together is an issue. As you can see, the ankles are moving a little freely. That's why I said I would wish they would snap into place. But again, as I mentioned, the tabs there, the tabs there, the tabs here on the front, I am concerned over time with them breaking. Also, when going back into robot mode, here, let me show you. Getting the barrel out is very difficult. It is in there quite tightly. Oof. And as you saw, it does require a great deal of force. But I've been trying to see if there's something there that I am missing, like these hook in somehow, and I should be pressing down. But nope, it's just a very tight connection, and it's all friction. So we'll pause real quick. Let me transform the Siege version of Megatron, and we'll do a quick comparison. Okay, and here's both tanks, and as you can see, again, very different looks. That whole front section is shorter, folds down for more of that H-tank look, where on here it's one fixed piece that just comes out forward. The barrels are obviously different. This has a more Earth tank design. Whereas we can also see here, the inside panels of the arms are actually different. Let's see what I can do here. Make sure that stays together. But as you can see on Earthrise Megatron, there's like some molded in missile launchers or something. Whereas on Siege Megatron, it's very smooth. And you can see, again, how the legs come together differently. You have that gap here where it's all here one solid unified tank design. Other than that, you still have the same functions where the turret can rotate. On Earthrise, does the same. And really, that's it. The barrels can't go up and down, and there are plastic wheels for them to roll. Ultimately, I think there's a lot of new on Megatron, but on Earthrise Megatron, but I think that new makes some things worse than on Siege Megatron. So yeah, that's about it. We'll pause, and I'll come back with my final thoughts. I don't want to say that Earthrise Megatron is a bad figure. Technically, since it is just a heavy retool of Siege Megatron, and the same framing structure is there, since it's the same transformation, it is a good figure. Now, Siege Megatron wasn't a great Voyager Megatron. There was a lot of issues getting things lined up, the transformation, the head issues, and stuff like that. And I think on Earthrise Megatron, some of those issues are exacerbated. I think the feet not locking in is an issue. The back heaviness is a major issue. The small tabs connecting the treads is an issue. But unfortunately, we live in a day and age where, for the most part, Megatron's either going to be some form of tank or some weird Cybertronian flying vehicle. My biggest issue is they took a lot of the play value that made Siege Megatron really cool in robot mode away by changing the sword. Now, then again, with the Transformers Red Megatron, that 6-inch articulated action figure coming, that kind of defeats the purpose of Siege Megatron's robot mode. I mean, if you need a robot mode Megatron to play with, you might as well get that, because it does everything that Siege Megatron does better, because it doesn't have to worry about transformation. So, with that said, I don't think I can recommend Earthrise Voyager Megatron. If you're a completist, yeah. But if not, there's the original Siege version of Megatron, there's this 35th anniversary, there's the Netflix version, there's that G2 Arctic Camo, which is one of the first Siege Select figures that has a different head on it as well. There's a lot of that mold floating around that I think you can get at an affordable price, that I think in terms of play value, you'll get a lot more out of. This, it's locked. And like I said, if you lose the barrel, if you lose the sword, if you lose that little black guard piece here that makes up the back section of the tank, you're going to have a very incomplete, ugly looking vehicle. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. While I normally just enjoy having you all watch my videos, the YouTube algorithms do put an importance on those other factors. So anything you can do will help, because it will bring my videos to a wider audience. If you really want to help and are so interested, I do have a card here in the corner and a link in the description to my Patreon. All I ask is $1 a month. No frills, no tiers, no special rewards. Just by donating, you'll be helping me bring more videos like this to you, and other videos such as my recent review of the Tobot Metron, the little mini Korean transforming figure. Well, that's about all. So, Earthrise Megatron, it's your old pal Chuck. We will see you next time.